Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I and Oppos am bringing you a new video that continues the love story of James and Diep. Diep finds her brother at his workplace in the days right before Tet, when most workers have already gone home. The workshop is wide but empty, filled only with the dry clink of metal and the occasional rumble of machinery, reminding her that life keeps moving, even when someone desperately wants it to stop. Her brother is bent over a machine, hands smeared with grease, shirt dusty, working like a man trying to forget. When he hears Diep call his name, he looks up, eyes tired, bloodshot, carrying the look of someone who hasn't slept for nights. Before Diep can ask much, he blurts it out like a person pushed to the edge. "I owe loan sharks, 300 million. The words drop heavy and cold. Diep freezes, as if slapped by truth. Then he breaks further. Their mother has cancer. She needs surgery. Money is no longer just a number, it is the line between in time and too late. He estimates the cost at 200 to 300 million, then chokes on the rest. And there are complications, it could reach 400-500. Without the money, their mother can only do radiation to hold on. She's in pain every day, and we just watch, unable to do anything." His voice shakes, and in that moment, being a man is no longer pride or toughness, only naked helplessness. "I'm a man, and I still can't take care of my mother." Diep feels her throat tighten. Outside, Tet is still coming. People are still shopping, still laughing, still living. But inside this empty workshop, the siblings face impossible numbers, and a question neither of them dares to say out loud yet. Where do you find the money to save their mother, and to escape that debt? Diep stands in the workshop for a long time, listening to the machines rumble like the breathing of a wounded animal. She looks at her brother, a man with grease on his hands and helplessness burning in his eyes, and then she does something that makes even her own heart stumble. She opens her bag, pulls out a thick stack of cash, and places it on the table like setting down a stone. "Take it," she says, her voice strangely steady. "Use it to treat Mom. And pay the debt too." Her brother freezes. Not because he has never seen money, but because this amount is too large, too impossible, too far outside their life. He stares at Diep as if she has become a question with no answer, and then he asks, half terrified, half broken, "Where did you get this?" Diep doesn't answer at first. She turns her face slightly, as if hiding something that is cracking open inside her chest. But her brother isn't foolish. He looks straight into her eyes, and his guess drops like a sharpened blade. "You took money in exchange for leaving James, didn't you?" Diep goes silent for a beat. Then she nods. No denial, no detour. "Yes." One small word, but it sounds like an entire young woman's life hitting the ground. She speaks as if sentencing herself. She will treat it as a loan from James's family. One day she will repay both principal and interest. "I'll work like an animal if I have to," she says evenly, though her fingers are clenched white. "As long as Mom lives." Then she gives a bitter, thin smile, at her poverty, at her place in the world. "I'm poor, and James's family is rich. I'm not worthy anyway." The phrase "not worthy" comes out like a way to push herself away before anyone else can. "Stopping here is fine." She says that, but her eyes don't believe it. Diep presses the money into her brother's hands, gives a few quick instructions, hospital paperwork, warning him not to let the loan sharks come to the house, and then she turns her back and leaves. Her steps are fast, as if slowing down even once would make her run back and cling to the life she's forcing herself to abandon. Her brother remains standing, the cash heavy like sin. He collapses into a chair, teeth clenched until a sound escapes his throat. "Making my sister trade love for money," he whispers, voice breaking. "I'm not worthy of being called a man." Diep's brother holds the cash and feels how cold it is, cold like something that was never meant to be in his hands. That night, he doesn't sleep. He stares at the workshop ceiling, hearing the wind slip through cracks, and most of all he hears the sound of his own dignity being scraped raw inside his chest. By morning, he folds the money neatly, stuffs it into his bag, and decides to do something that may cost him dearly, but at least he will still be able to look his sister in the eyes. He goes to see the chairman. The chairman's office is wide and bright, filled with polished wood and expensive perfume, a kind of luxury that feels cold. Diep's brother stands before the desk and sets the money down like a refusal made solid. "I'm returning it," he says, voice rough but firm. "I'd rather borrow at brutal interest to save my mother, than let my sister trade her love." The chairman curls his lip, eyes sliding over him as if over dust. "A poor man like you thinks he gets to choose?" The words are light, but humiliating, like a slap delivered without lifting a hand. Diep's brother doesn't flinch. He lifts his chin, and his reply comes out sharper than he expected to be capable of. "We may be poor, but our feelings are rich. You're rich in money, but you're lacking in heart." He taps the stack of bills. "You can buy many things, but you can't buy a person's heart. And you have no right to make someone pay with love." The air in the room thickens. He steps half a pace closer and speaks slowly, each word like a nail hammered in. "If your mother were seriously ill and you needed money to save her, you'd choose your mother too. You'd do anything. Don't stand there looking down on the choices of poor people, because when it comes to choosing between money and family, rich or poor, we're all the same." He pushes the money back toward the chairman, as if repaying a debt that was never his. Then he turns and walks out. His back is straight, but inside he is trembling, because he knows from this moment on, he isn't only facing loan sharks and hospital bills anymore. He has stepped into the path of a power that is used to making people bow. The door closes behind Diep's brother with a dry, short click, but inside the chairman's spacious office, the sound feels like a knock on conscience. The chairman remains still for a long moment, eyes fixed on the stack of cash on his desk, something that has always been his power, and now looks like proof of a quiet cruelty. He is used to bowed heads. Used to people swallowing their words out of fear. Used to the feeling that if he names a number, everything will fall into order. And yet today, a man with grease on his hands, a worker he could have dismissed as small, looked him straight in the eye and spoke about right and wrong. No begging. No flattery. Just the money returned, and with it a question: what, exactly, has the chairman been doing to other people's lives? "Even he condemns me," the chairman murmurs, his voice sinking. "A worker, ashamed on my behalf." He walks to the window and looks down at the yard, where people move back and forth like tiny dots. Suddenly he feels alone, strangely alone, despite having everything. He remembers Diep's face when she accepted the money, that forced calm, that hardness like a nail driven straight into her own heart. At the time, he believed he was solving the problem: pay, cut ties, keep things quiet. But now the phrase trading love for money returns again and again like a small needle, pricking until his old confidence can no longer stand upright. He looks back at the cash on the desk. For the first time in years, it doesn't look beautiful. It looks like polished mud. The tighter you grip it, the dirtier your hands become. "Money has changed me," he says aloud, as if confessing to himself. "I thought I was protecting my son, protecting honor, protecting what was right, but I was only protecting my pride." A bitter smile appears, no longer arrogant. Power makes a man believe he has the right to decide other people's fate. He sits down, both hands resting on the desk as if holding up something heavy. Outside, the construction site keeps its rhythm, life keeps moving. But inside this office, a crack has appeared, small, yet wide enough for light to slip in. And the chairman begins to fear that if that light grows, he will have to face what he has done. Inside the company, the story branches into a different line, no longer river wind and family arguments, but cold air conditioning and footsteps echoing on polished tiles. The chairman/CEO calls Tuan into his office and assigns him directly: from now on, Tuan must strongly support the farm project and agricultural machinery division. Not just paperwork, he has to carry real weight for a sector the CEO is placing his hopes on. Tuan stands before the desk, fingers interlocked until his knuckles pale. He tries to speak smoothly about progress, equipment, manpower, but his voice keeps catching. Finally, Like a man who can't swallow anymore, he lowers his head. "Sir, may I speak privately?" He hesitates, then breaks. His mother has had cancer for 3 years. The family has been surviving with temporary treatment. Now they need a large amount, 4 to 500 million, to continue properly, but he was too ashamed, too afraid of judgment, so only now did he dare to say it. The room goes silent for a beat. Then the CEO doesn't shout or laugh. He leans back in his chair and looks at Tuan like a person, not a number. "I'll help," he says briefly. But he adds conditions immediately. Tuan must work harder, must strongly support the agriculture segment, and must sign a 3-year contract. Not as a trap, as clarity. "I want my employees to be happy," the CEO says quietly. "If you're struggling, speak up. Don't hide it." Tuan exhales, eyes turning red, relief mixed with shame. But then, as if the door has finally opened, he is forced to reveal something even heavier, a secret he has held so tightly he fears saying it aloud. "Sir," Tuan swallows. I brought Ms. Diep to stay temporarily in my old house." The air shifts instantly. The CEO sits up straight, his gaze sharpening. "Take me there. Now." His voice isn't loud, but it lands like an order, and Tuan understands, this is no longer only about money. It touches something deeper, more dangerous, and it may change everything. Tuan's old house is silent, carrying the smell of dampness and long-settled dust, like a place made for hiding. Diep stands close to the wall, shoulders drawn in, eyes angled away out of habit. She hears the door open and her heart races, yet she still tries to hold on to a fragile calm, the kind of calm people wear when they've learned to suffer alone. James steps inside. There is no field wind here, no soft distance like in the vegetable rows. Only a narrow space between two people, close enough to face the truth, close enough that turning away would feel like a lie. The moment Diep sees him, she breaks down. Tears come fast, as if she has not allowed herself to be weak for a long time. "I'm sorry," Diep says, voice cracking. "Since I was little, no one taught me how to face things. So whenever something happens, I run. I thought running would keep everyone safe." James hurts, but he doesn't retreat. He stays still, voice low and firm. "If you run, I can't protect you." The words pull Diep back into reality, where running is no longer harmless. It becomes a way of pushing herself out of the only arms trying to hold her. Diep inhales and tells everything. She says James's father sent people to drive her away. She met him. She took the money, to treat her mother, to pay her brother's debt. She doesn't deny it, doesn't dress it up. She lays the truth between them like a knife placed on a table. "I had to choose my mother," she says, eyes red, voice clear. "Not, choose to abandon you." James listens and falls silent for a long beat. Then he nods, like someone who has walked through the same torment. "I understand," he says softly. "I've also had to choose between my father and the person I love. It's just as hard." He steps closer, not forcing her, only close enough that she doesn't feel discarded. "I only ask one thing," James says, voice rough. "From now on, don't run from me. I only need you." Then he adds, as if freeing her from blame while taking the wound into his own hands. He doesn't blame Diep, because she has been forced to survive alone, to carry pain alone. He mentions the years she was even sold into another family as a child, a scar that taught her to grow up by shrinking herself. "The one at fault is me," James says, his eyes darkening. "Because I wasn't strong enough to shield you from my father. In that damp house, the words 'don't run from me' land like a hold." And Diep understands, if she runs again this time, she may run away from the last thing still worth keeping. The door of the old house suddenly opens. No knock, no warning. The air shifts at once, as if a large shadow drops into the room, making every word that had just begun to warm again stop mid-breath. Diep flinches to her feet. James freezes, because the man stepping in is no one else but his father. He doesn't enter with the authority Diep once imagined. He pauses at the threshold, looks at them both, then lingers on Diep. In his eyes is the heaviness of a man used to winning, yet today he has come to lose, to surrender to his own conscience. "I'm sorry," he says, voice low, not sharp. "I was wrong, to forbid you, to force you, and to use money to push you away from James." Diep is stunned. An apology from a powerful man can feel even more frightening than a threat, because it means something has truly shifted. James stands beside her, his hand tightening unconsciously, as if afraid he misheard. The father takes a step forward, speaking slowly, as if telling his own life back to himself. He says he was poor once too. His mother had cancer. He begged, borrowed, promised everything, yet he still couldn't save her. That helplessness haunted him for years, turning into an obsession with money. If you have money, you don't lose people. If you have power, life can't crush you. And because of that obsession, he feared his son becoming poor, feared James being used, feared love turning into a trap that would drag James down. He looks at James, then back at Diep. "But I protected him the wrong way," he says quietly. "I thought I was saving him. I was destroying him." Then he speaks the most important sentence, clear as a door opening. "From now on, James will decide his own life and his own love." James feels something lift inside his chest. "So that means, you won't forbid it anymore?" His voice trembles with relief. His father nods, firm. "Yes. I won't forbid it anymore." The damp house seems to brighten. Yet the father's tone remains that of a leader, calm, solid. "Soon I'll return overseas. The company is yours to manage. Do it well." The instruction carries responsibility, but also something new, permission without conditions, especially not conditions tied to love. Diep stands still, no longer crying, only feeling her heart loosen, as if a tight knot has finally been released after a long, painful time. After the storm, nothing becomes fine overnight. But one change is unmistakable, the door. It is no longer a door used for escape, slammed shut out of fear. It becomes a door you step through, upright, honest, together. James leads Diep into his house as if guiding her through an old chapter, but this time not to reopen wounds, rather to reopen the space with a new spirit. He pauses at the threshold, looks at her for a beat, and speaks softly. "Can we start again from here?" It isn't a plea. It's an invitation to build something stronger than fear. In the days that follow, the house begins to change skin. The kitchen is renovated, cleaner, brighter, easier to cook in. James measures and repairs with his own hands, adds shelves, fixes a leak, adjusts corners that never quite worked. Diep cleans, reorganizes, and in doing so, it feels like she is also putting her life back into place. They build simple fencing, not a fortress wall, but enough to create safety, enough that Diep doesn't flinch at every sound outside the gate. Then comes the garden. The backyard soil is reshaped, wider beds, raised edges, a safer path so the ground won't be slippery. James asks about everything: what to plant first, how to improve the soil, which water source will be reliable. Diep talks about compost, about how to ferment it, about watering in the morning or late afternoon, about pests and how to remove them by hand. The conversations sound ordinary, but beneath their ordinariness is a symbol. They are learning to nurture something alive, and to carry responsibility for it together. James begins coming home earlier. He still works, but he no longer drives himself into exhaustion. He wants to be home on time, to share meals with Diep, to listen to Nee's endless little stories, to be present when the wind turns cold so he can help cover the vegetable beds. Diep notices, and her heart softens bit by bit, like soil after rain, quiet, but finally able to yield. The mood shifts from drama into healing through small things: a bucket of water, a basket of loosened earth, a hot meal in a newly brightened kitchen. And in the garden, slowly turning green, they begin to understand. Starting again doesn't mean forgetting everything. It means choosing to live forward, with their own hands. And with Diep stood in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup while James arranged the table. A gentle warmth spread through the space, not because the lights were brighter, but because after so many upheavals, They were preparing a meal that finally felt like family. The gate closed, then opened again. Diep's brother stepped in, thinner, but with eyes less haunted than before. Tuan came with him, carrying a bag of food as if embarrassed to arrive empty-handed. No one spoke in grand lines. They greeted each other, offered small smiles, then sat down naturally, like people who had survived the same long storm. The meal was simple: boiled greens from the newly expanded garden, a garlic-scented dipping sauce, steaming soup, and a pot of caramelized pork. Ni ran one playful circle around the table before sitting down, eyes sparkling at the number of people. James placed vegetables into her bowl. Diep reminded her to eat slowly. Diep's brother watched the scene and felt his throat tighten, like he was witnessing something he once thought had been lost. After a few bites, Diep's brother set his chopsticks down. His voice softened. "Mom is stabilizing." The whole table fell quiet for a beat, as if everyone held their breath to hear the rest. He said the hospital fees were still heavy, still something they had to fight for day by day, but they would manage. Then he looked at James, eyes reddening. Because James advanced 2 years of salary. The words landed quietly but deep. Diep turned her face away and blinked fast, afraid tears might break the peace of the meal. James only nodded, not claiming credit, like it wasn't a heroic act, just something that had to be done. In the end, they folded their hands together. No one prayed for anything grand. Only simple words: may illness leave, may peace remain, may this family, still imperfect, still struggling, hold on to each other through the hard days ahead. In that moment, the prayer blended with the warmth of the meal, and the house seemed to brighten a little, not from any bulb, but from one truth. They still had each other. When the meal ends, the clink of bowls fades into quiet. Ni falls asleep on the chair and is carried to bed. Diep's brother and Tuan leave, and the house is left with a gentle hush, the kind of silence that no longer feels frightening, but like a long breath after a storm. James stands on the porch, looking toward the garden they have just rebuilt. The soil still smells damp, young leaves tremble in the night air. He speaks as if to himself, yet every word is meant for Diep, who is somewhere inside this house, even if her feet still don't fully trust that she is truly allowed to stay. After you left, I thought this house would stay empty forever, James says, his voice slow and rough. Empty not because there was no food, or no child's laughter, but because you were gone. He tells everything, leaving nothing out, Diep being driven away, being summoned to a cafe to receive money. At first she refused. She tried to protect her dignity, tried to keep love as the one clean thing she still had. But then her mother fell ill. Her brother's debt closed in. Life crashed down like a stone, and Diep was forced to lower her head, not out of greed, but to save the people she loved. I don't blame you, James says, his eyes darkening. Because if it were me, I might have done the same. Then he turns his gaze toward his father, seeing him not only as a powerful man, but as someone carrying an old fear inside. My father controlled things not because he hated you, James says. He did it because he loved me too much, because he was terrified I'd be weak, terrified I'd be poor, terrified I'd be used. He wanted to block all pain so I wouldn't suffer. But sometimes a shield becomes a cage. And then James defines love in a way he once misunderstood. Real love is not only happiness. It is longing, worry, nights so painful you can't sleep, days when you think you've lost each other forever. And if you still walk through hardship and keep holding hands, that is true love. He steps closer to Diep. He doesn't speak loudly, only close enough that his words feel like a heartbeat. No matter what happens, hold my hand tightly. Don't let go anymore. A gentle sign that the story was still unfolding. Stay tuned for the next episode to see what changes await Diep in James. Don and Oppos, forget to leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and like the video to continue accompanying this story in the chapters ahead.
Mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình nha. Tối nay thì mình đang làm video cho James và Diệp nhé mọi người. biết nội dung thôi.